So for you to say everybody's on the same page was a complete lie. Now, here's Adam Silver. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said Tuesday night he is tracking WNBA collective bargaining sessions very closely. I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. I talked to the people who are at the negotiating table.
Adam Silver has stepped straight into the WNBA's collective bargaining talks, and he is not acting like a neutral referee. His move shifts the balance fast and puts real pressure on the players' side. The NBA commissioner made his stance obvious. He believes games need to be played and that compromise has to happen. That message echoes what Caitlin Clark said 2 weeks earlier when she split from the Players Association, and now the most influential figure in pro basketball is lining up with that same viewpoint.
Now, here's Adam Silver, in that he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum would both be willing to join the prolonged negotiations to finalize a deal.
This all lands while the league's co-founders are hustling to protect their off-season project and keep momentum alive. That timing makes Silver's involvement hit even harder. His role goes beyond offering help. He pushed the idea that both sides must reach common ground and accept concessions to move forward. At the same time, the discussion keeps circling back to pay, with growing acknowledgement that WNBA players are owed far more money than they are currently seeing. Looking at the league's rising success, there's a big detail missing from that message, and it's hard to ignore. There's no mention at all of a 50-50 revenue split, which is exactly what the Players Association has been demanding. Adam Silver keeps the focus on flat dollar increases instead of percentage-based formulas, and that approach directly shuts down the union's core negotiating position. The timing of these comments adds even more pressure. Silver made them on December 17th at the NBA Cup Finals in Las Vegas, with the current CBA extension set to expire on January 9th. That leaves just 3 weeks to close what sources are calling a serious gap. The players are asking for 30% of league revenue, the WNBA is offering 15%, and Silver is telling both sides to meet in the middle while clearly rejecting the players' framework for how their share should be calculated.
Silver also said he has great relationships with many of the players and believes the sides are on course for a solution. The current 40-day extension ends January 9th, and that date is fastly approaching. Okay, he says, I remain optimistic we'll get something done, but whether that means I'm physically sitting at the table for the negotiation, Silver said. And again, I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. In essence, I care enormously about it and want it to be successful, and I want the players to feel fairly treated as well. And I realize there's been a disconnect, especially over the last few months.
Now pay close attention to Breanna Stewart's response. She says what they're doing right now isn't getting them anywhere. Translation: the Players Association's hardline strategy isn't delivering results. They opted out of the CBA back in October, expecting the league to cave on revenue sharing. Instead, they've burned through 2 extensions, watched the league announce expansion plans without them, and now face the possibility of the NBA commissioner personally sitting at the negotiating table. Stewart says she would welcome Adam Silver joining the talks, but the way she frames it reveals just how much the balance of power has shifted. She says her goal is to make sure everyone clearly understands what the players want and how they feel. That kind of framing does not come from a position of strength at the negotiating table. It sounds more like an appeal for outside pressure, specifically hoping Adam Silver will lean on ownership to concede. The problem is that Silver has already made his position clear. He is not stepping in to push for a 50-50 revenue split, and he is not there to rewrite the league's financial structure. His priority is much simpler and much colder. He wants a deal that ensures games are played and business continues without disruption. That means compromise, not victory for one side. For players who built their strategy around a firm demand, that reality changes everything. This is where the situation becomes tricky for the Players Association. Breanna Stewart acknowledges that multiple outcomes can exist at the same time and that both sides can still walk away satisfied.
How we feel. And now let's get to the actual video so we can get more dialogue of what Breanna Stewart had to say. They trying to hardball. The owners aren't going to give in to all this nonsense. They're trying to hardball, these players are. And at the end of the day, Adam Silver is with Caitlin Clark. Y'all need to compromise and get this damn deal done and stop playing games.
Hey, Stewie. Good to see you. I had two questions. The first, Adam Silver spoke ahead of the Cup and said that if necessary, he'd be up for coming to the bargaining table, him and Mark Tatum. I'm just wondering, like, do you think that would be beneficial? Would there be value to having Adam's presence at the bargaining table?
But she follows that by saying something mutual has to happen first. That wording matters. For months, the union treated revenue sharing as a non-negotiable principle rather than a starting point. They framed the issue publicly as a moral stand, not a bargaining chip. The association leaned heavily into messaging about equity and fairness. They criticized the league's focus on absolute salary increases and rejected percentage-based discussions outright. That approach painted a clear line in the sand. Now, with compromise openly back on the table, that line looks far less solid. When the most visible leader in the movement starts acknowledging that both sides must give something up, it signals a shift. It may be a realistic shift, but it is still a retreat from the posture the union presented to players and fans. That change creates internal pressure, especially among players who align themselves closely with the original strategy. It also complicates things for stars like Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier, who launched Unrivaled with the idea of expanding opportunities and leverage for players. The longer negotiations drag on, the more questions emerge about who truly benefits from the delay. Not every player has the same financial cushion, and not every player can afford a prolonged standoff. As time passes, the gap between leadership rhetoric and on-the-ground reality becomes harder to ignore. What started as a unified push now risks exposing divisions within the player base. With Adam Silver focused on resolution rather than redistribution, the pressure is no longer just on ownership. It is also on the Players Association to reconcile its public demands with what it is actually willing to accept at the table. This is the point where the underlying fracture becomes visible. Breanna Stewart is asked about Project B, the new 3-on-3 league scheduled to run from fall through April. That timeline places it directly against Unrivaled's winter window, and her response reveals more than she likely intends.
And the season is going to run from fall to April, which is in direct competition with Unrivaled. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard about Project B? And what's the long-term answer for the landscape of women's basketball? Is it to have one premier league? Is it to continue developing all of these leagues? Like, what is truly the answer? What is the ideal world for the women's basketball landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think my immediate thoughts when I saw Project B, I was kind of like, well, they saw what worked. You know, they saw the success that we had here at Unrivaled, and they wanted to be a part of that in their own way and try to do it. But at the same time, knowing, what we're doing here.
She explains that Project B observed what worked at Unrivaled and wanted to participate in that space in its own way. From there, she quickly shifts focus to why Unrivaled is different, emphasizing player equity, access to resources, and the idea of keeping athletes in one centralized location. What stands out is not what she highlights, but what she leaves out. She does not acknowledge that Project B's schedule actually fits more cleanly alongside the WNBA calendar. She avoids mentioning that players who prefer to remain overseas and still return in time for a full WNBA season now have a viable option. Instead, Project B is brushed aside as imitation, while Unrivaled is framed as the superior model. That is not neutral analysis. It reads as promotion. This response exposes a conflict that has been shaping these negotiations from the beginning. Stewart later says that if the WNBA season is not aligned with everything else, then nothing can function together. She argues there needs to be an environment where everyone agrees, but in the same breath, she concedes that the league is not at that point yet and makes it clear that her primary focus remains on Unrivaled. That contradiction matters. The Players Association is meant to represent the interests of all WNBA players across different financial situations, career stages, and off-season priorities. At the same time, the most influential figures in those negotiations are operating a league that directly benefits from a compressed WNBA season and protected winter months. Those incentives do not align perfectly with the broader player base. For some athletes, a longer WNBA season and flexible off-season options are more valuable than a concentrated alternative league. When leadership priorities tilt toward personal ventures, it complicates the credibility of the negotiating position. Caitlin Clark pointed this out weeks earlier. As negotiations continue to stall, the overlap between advocacy and self-interest is becoming harder to dismiss. What once looked like unified leadership now raises real questions about whose future.
What we're doing right now isn't really getting us anywhere. So if that means that Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that, and just making sure everybody understands what we want and how we feel, and realizing that both things can be true together. You know, everybody can agree and like get what they want out of this, but there has to be some, like, I don't know, mutual, some things in common happening first. So yeah, if Adam wants to come, I would love to have him.
Is being prioritized. She argued that players need to compromise because games have to be played. The implication underneath that statement was hard to miss. Some players appear more focused on protecting their off-season ventures than prioritizing the league that actually signs their paychecks. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert insisted that all players were unified, but that claim did not hold up. Players like Deja Kelly and others publicly supported Caitlin Clark's position, exposing real division within the player base. That internal conflict is a major reason negotiations have stalled, and it explains why Adam Silver is now stepping directly into the process. Silver made it clear that he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum are both willing to sit in on negotiations. That detail matters. When Mark Tatum gets involved, it signals the NBA views the situation as a legitimate business risk, not just a routine labor disagreement. Tatum oversees league operations and international growth. He is not typically present for standard collective bargaining discussions. His involvement usually means deals are at risk, and the league is moving to protect long-term investments. Right now, the WNBA has a lot on the line. The league is in the middle of historic expansion, with Golden State entering next season and Toronto and Portland scheduled to join in 2026. Momentum has never been stronger. On top of that, the WNBA recently secured new media rights agreements expected to generate $2.2 billion over 11 years starting in 2025. A work stoppage during this phase would be damaging. A prolonged standoff with players would be even worse. At the same time, the league cannot establish a structure that gives players unchecked control over revenue decisions. A 50-50 revenue split would represent that kind of shift for a league that is still operating at a loss. This is the balancing act Silver and Tatum are stepping into. Growth needs stability, and stability requires compromise. The question now is whether the Players Association is prepared to meet that reality or continue pushing demands that the league has already made clear it will not accept. Adam Silver is not entering these talks to workshop ideas or float theoretical options. He is stepping in to enforce a solution. The goal is not endless negotiation, but a compromise that allows the league to move forward and keep games on the floor. That compromise is expected to include meaningful salary increases, improved travel standards, and expanded player benefits. There may even be a form of revenue sharing, but one tied to profitability benchmarks rather than raw top-line revenue. What will not be part of the deal is the Players Association's demand for 30% of league revenue, regardless of financial reality. That distinction matters, especially when looking at Caitlin Clark's position. She separated from the union's messaging because she understood the underlying math and the fragility of the league's current growth phase. The WNBA is growing, but it is not yet financially secure. Momentum depends on consistent seasons, full schedules, and positive public perception. Any disruption, whether through a shortened season or public labor conflict, puts that momentum at risk. Clark recognizes that exposure is everything right now. Her presence is driving viewership in a way the league has never seen before. This season, games featuring Caitlin Clark averaged roughly 1.2 million viewers. Games without her average closer to 400,000. That gap explains where the leverage truly sits. Pushing for compromise in this environment is not selfish. It is grounded in reality. Sustained growth requires stability, not brinkmanship. Silver is operating from the same framework. His comments consistently emphasize increased success and absolute dollar growth. That language is intentional. It acknowledges that players deserve higher pay as revenues rise, while also reinforcing that growth must be measured responsibly. The league generates approximately $200 million in annual revenue. 30% of that equals $60 million split among 144 players, averaging about $417,000 per player before accounting for operating costs, team expenses, expansion investments, and facility spending. Once those factors are included, the numbers stop working. Even 15% stretches the current structure. Silver understands this because the NBA faced similar challenges during its own evolution. The lesson then, as now, is that growth must be protected before it can be redistributed. The NBA did not reach a 50-50 revenue split until it was highly profitable and backed by decades of financial stability. The WNBA is only in its 28th season and has just begun to establish real viability. Demanding NBA-level revenue splits at this stage ignores the league's actual position. It is a mismatch between aspiration and economics. The Players Association made its situation harder by framing the negotiation as an issue of equity and fairness instead of a business discussion. By turning it into a moral argument rather than a financial one, they limited their own flexibility. Once the conversation shifted in that direction, backing down became politically difficult. That framing explains why Commissioner Kathy Engelbert insisted all players were unified, even when that was no longer true. Maintaining the appearance of unity was essential to the strategy. The moment that unity cracked, the leverage disappeared. That crack has already happened. Caitlin Clark exposed it first, followed by other players who simply want the season to proceed without disruption. Now Adam Silver is positioned to dismantle what remains by forcing both sides to confront economic reality. That reality has two sides. WNBA players deserve higher pay, and the league cannot sustain revenue-based compensation that ignores profitability. Both statements can be true at the same time. Compromise means accepting both without pretending one cancels out the other. Over the next 3 weeks, the Players Association faces a narrowing set of outcomes. They can accept a deal that includes substantial salary increases, better benefits, and structural improvements without adopting full revenue sharing. Or they can wait while Adam Silver and Mark Tatum enter the room and impose a framework that neither side prefers but both can survive. That is what compromise looks like in practice. It is not everyone getting exactly what they want. It is everyone getting enough to move forward. Breanna Stewart has said her primary focus right now is unrivaled. That statement explains much of the gridlock. Some of the players most influential in negotiations are also deeply invested in an off-season league that benefits from a shorter or less flexible WNBA calendar.
Silver said ahead of NBA Cup final in Las Vegas, "I talk to the people who are at the negotiating table on a daily basis, and I've said before, we, the NBA, WNBA collective, acknowledge that our players deserve to be paid significantly more than they have so far based on the increased success of the league, and it's just a question now of finding a meeting of the minds in terms of what is a fair deal."
Meanwhile, players who are most invested in maximizing WNBA growth, like Caitlin Clark, are pushing for stability and continuity. Silver is aligning with Clark's position because he understands the stakes. This is not about assigning moral victory. It is about recognizing the moment. The WNBA has real momentum for the first time in its history, and that momentum is being driven largely by Clark's ability to attract casual fans who previously ignored the league. Those fans are not tracking collective bargaining details. They are not debating revenue formulas. They are watching games because Caitlin Clark is playing. Any disruption that delays or shortens the season risks losing them entirely. That is the leverage. That is why Silver is stepping in now. A labor dispute that spills into the season would undo years of progress and reinforce old narratives the league can no longer afford. The WNBA cannot absorb that regression. The players cannot either, even if some do not fully recognize it yet. With January 9th approaching, the window for voluntary compromise is closing. One way or another, a deal will be reached. The remaining question is whether the Players Association accepts a workable agreement on its own terms or forces the league to impose one. Based on recent comments, It appears more players are beginning to realize the leverage they believed they had does not exist in the way they assumed. The decision now is whether they take the available win or hold out for an outcome the league has already rejected. This situation has reached the point where there is no room left for posturing. The masks are off, the timelines are tight, and the power dynamics are clear. Adam Silver is not stepping in to listen. He is stepping in to finish this. The league has momentum it has never had before, and it is not willing to let internal conflicts or competing priorities stall that progress. Caitlin Clark understood this before most people wanted to admit it. Growth only matters if it is protected. Exposure only matters if games are played. The WNBA finally has casual fans paying attention, networks invested, expansion locked in, and money coming through the door. That window is rare, and it closes fast if mishandled. This negotiation was never just about percentages or principles. It was about timing, leverage, and reality. The league has made it clear it will raise pay, improve conditions, and invest in players. What it will not do is hand over control before the business can sustain it. That line is not moving. The Players Association now faces a defining choice: accept a deal that improves player lives and keeps the season intact, or push until the league steps in and dictates terms. Either way, the outcome is coming. The only difference is who owns the decision when it lands. One thing is already settled. The era of pretending everyone wants the same thing is over. Conflicts of interest are out in the open. Priorities have been exposed, and the league's leadership has made it clear that protecting the product comes first. When the deal is announced, the spin will be loud. The behind-the-scenes story will matter more. Who pushed, who folded, who understood the moment, and who misread it. If you want the real breakdown when that announcement drops, not the polished headlines or league-approved talking points, you already know where to go. Follow Courtside Leaks for what actually happened, who won, who lost, and what this means for the future of the WNBA. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.